today is really to give you that overview, and if there's one thing that you take away from this session, is that we should have absolute confidence in our industry, and especially in the convenience channel. And I will support that with some data and also some examples from around the world, but also examples of real initiatives that are occurring in Ireland and closer to home in the UK. I'll start with the grocery market, look at shopper in a little bit more detail, and then the challenges that we all face either as retailers or suppliers in this challenging marketplace, but I think a very positive place to be. And then responses that retailers can consider and suppliers can work with you to help you develop. So we touched on shopper uncertainty. There's a lot going on. So the economy appears to be slowing down. Inflation is said to return, although stabilized a month ago. And clearly there are concerns over household debt. So there are many factors that we can take into account at the macro level. But when we come on, and labour costs we'll touch on as well, but I think that that point that Mark raised around fairness for all. Labour costs, yes, they are rising, but actually there are great ways to make people work well for you and get them engaged in your business. And one of the things that when we talk about food to go especially, having specialists and people who are interested in that part of your offer is absolutely critical. So I talked about growth, and over the next 5 years, IGD's forecast is that the market will grow to around about 213 billion. It's a slightly revised forecast from this time a year ago, and a lot of that growth is driven by inflation. So you can see there, the market as it stands today is around about 185 billion and will grow over the next 5 years to 213. Now the big bar there is inflation, so 24 billion of the growth that we're forecasting will come from price inflation, and we've seen the impact of commodity prices in recent months and years. There will be a slowdown in population growth, so that incremental growth, that real growth from population growth will start to slow, certainly after Brexit, but that's our forecast based on what we think will happen to population movement at that period in time. There's no guarantee right now, and as Mark alluded to, those negotiations are ongoing. We're a strong economy. So that sort of 0.4 there of decline is not something that we would be concerned about right now. And shoppers, whilst cautious, are not telling us that they are feeling that they're not going to be worse off over the next 12 months. In fact, they're either thinking they're going to be about the same or possibly better off than they are today. And as you can see, that middle bar is actually narrowing as we've exited the major impacts of the recession that began in about 2008, 2009. What is top of mind are food prices. So along with energy, food prices is probably the biggest thing that people are spending their cash on, and it's very visible to them. So they're shopping for value, and we've seen that in the rise of the discounters. I'll talk about that in terms of the impact on market share for discounters shortly. So food prices are a concern, and 78% of shoppers think that food prices will rise over the next 12 months, and clearly some of that conversation has been driven by conversations around Brexit. So what of the shopper? The convenience channel first, though. The market is set to grow to 2022 by £7 billion. Now, yes, some of that will come from inflation, but there is a huge potential to grow in this area. And that's driven by changing lifestyle choices. Mark talked about shoppers are shopping a little more often these days. People are coming into this channel. Around about 9 times a month is the average that shoppers are coming into the convenience channel. So that's a huge opportunity. If you think about your own personal shopping experiences, we talk about 26 times a month. And when this came out from our diary surveys that we take, I genuinely thought this was a bit of a mistake, that people didn't shop that often. But actually, if you think about it, we're pretty much in stores each and every day, buying food either to consume immediately or to take away and consume for that evening. And that's the biggest change now, is that people are shopping much more around the next few hours, and certainly no more than about 18, 24 hours in advance. And convenience stores are well placed to satisfy those demands. And the newer generation, or the younger generations that's coming through, so I'm not seeing too many of the under 25-year-olds in the room, and certainly I'm not one of them, but 20% of them have got a greater propensity to shop in convenience stores versus 7% of the older generation, or the above 26 years old. And I think that's a fantastic story for us, and we should take advantage of it. But they are demanding, and I'll come on to that in a second. From our diary surveys, we see that shoppers are spending around about 7 minutes on an average shop in a convenience store. And whilst you might not think that's a long time, actually, part of this diary survey is telling us that people have got a propensity to be open to offers and open to impulse purchase and to be traded up. So this is not a bad thing. 22 minutes in a supermarket, well, you'd expect that, wouldn't you, because they're shopping for a greater range. But the graphic on the right here and the blue line within that tells you that that younger generation is also prepared to spend a little bit more for that convenience. Time has a value. Now, that's not to say it gives you permission to insult price them, because they're aware of prices, but they are most certainly happy to spend some time, to save time and spend that little bit more. But don't forget quality. And missions, we'll talk about missions. Missions are what shoppers are about now. So it's no longer about category. Having everything in one place by category suits you. It suits the supplier, it suits the retailer, but it does not suit the shopper. And what we see here is an example from Centra in Ireland, where they've got a fantastic meal for tonight solution, which absolutely inspires people to shop more and shop now for that immediate need. We'll touch on food to go. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it is a massive opportunity. So not every retailer in the room will be up for food to go, but if you are, then what I would absolutely encourage you to do, and I've seen this from retailers across the world, is make sure that the people who serve food to go, that prepare your food to go offer, are absolute foodies. This isn't about taking somebody just off the till and putting them onto it. They need proper training and investment into this space. And you'll see examples of that later today from some of the retailers that I was speaking to earlier, where you can absolutely win in this space and take advantage of this and create a point of difference. But the point about food to go is that it's not just the multiples in the convenience sector that have raised the bar. Your competition, regardless of mission, for the shopper, are these people. So you've got Costa, Pret, Nero. They're all offering fantastic service. And that's what the shopper is demanding of all their shopping experiences, never more so in the convenience channel. There is a lot of selection, there's a lot of competition, and people will move elsewhere. And they may not complain about it and tell you what's wrong, they'll just walk. So some of those challenges in the marketplace, well, let's just start with how does the subsegments of the channels break down? So this is the convenience channel, and these are the shares that we've currently got and the growth that we're seeing. So symbols and independents by far make up the largest segment of the convenience channel in terms of numbers and growth opportunity. But mults are significant players here. They've raised the bar, and as Mark said before, they've got plenty of cash, and they're trying new things to bring people into their shops. They're raising the bar, and you have to take note of them. But let's not forget that other competitor set that's out there. Growth in multiple is really strong. It's not being driven through store acquisition. It's being driven through like-for-like sales from their existing estate. Co-ops, you can see there, they're looking flat this year pretty much. Now, that is not the true picture. On a like-for-like basis, co-ops are returning fantastic sales results. But what we see this year is that you'll be aware they divested 298 profitable stores to Martin McColl's because that fitted with their strategy. Clearly, that's impacted on their overall growth, but as a business, they are very much focused on top-rate convenience stores. And on average, mults and co-ops are returning around about £2 million a year per store, so significant businesses in their own right. And forecourts we'll touch on in a second or two. Shoppers have perceptions, so whether this is reality in your outlets or the people that you're dealing with, this is what they see, and they want quality of products, and they absolutely want freshness of offer. So multiples about on par, independents slightly back on quality over on the left. Forecourts, that investment as the oil companies have moved out of retail and some specialist operators have moved in, we've seen an increase in perception of quality in forecourts over the last 12 months. Symbols, bit of a watch out, there's some movement backwards in that area. And then if we look at fresh, co-ops leading, forecourts getting better, independents doing well, mults falling backwards and symbols falling backwards, which is quite a surprise. But when we talk about the market developments that are coming, and I'm not going to touch in any too great detail on what's going on, but there's a real opportunity to take advantage of the fresh supply chains that are being created out there. Now, I can see a Booker logo in the room somewhere. I'm not going to talk about this in great detail. We all know that the CMA have given their provisional approval to this interesting. I was going to say, in fact, I think Mark Price talks about it as Booker buying Tesco. I'm not sure which way around it is or what the guys think, but the PR ladies in the room. So I think that what this is doing is stimulating huge activity. And actually, the one that I've left off here is the McColl's deal. So whilst we were all talking and eulogizing around about what the impact of Tesco Booker would be, McColl's went and stole a march, and they married up with Morrison's on a supply chain initiative, which will see them start rolling out from January next year with a new logo, a return to the Safeway logo in the UK market. I think the Co-op have made a very sensible bid for NISA, and the fact that that's just been approved, I think that will be interesting for NISA members in terms of giving them access to that fantastic fresh supply chain. And one stop, there's around 200 retailers in the UK have gone to a franchise model where they've completely relinquished control, which might be, completely the wrong thing for some people in the room, but actually it's proving to be a very successful model for retailers who are adopting it. We're seeing a lot of positivity coming from that particular area. The reason for the photograph, where we see your traditional legacy categories of news, which we know is in decline in terms of print, lottery, which has had a couple of years of downturn, and probably tobacco, which is taking a hit as well, is that in the rear of that photograph, you can see Subway and Greggs. And it emphasizes that food to go is important, but it doesn't have to be about brands. I think the easy option is to bring in a Subway, or an easy option is to bring in a Costa. But actually, we're seeing great examples, especially from Ireland, where they've created brands and food-to-go opportunities that have built their businesses, created great gross profit margins, and bringing customers in. So what are the changing channel share, all that impact will have? Well, supermarkets will still be the largest, but over the next 5 years, they'll see a decline in share with a slight increase in the convenience channel. So second largest, £7 billion worth of growth in this channel. So huge opportunities to go after. Discounters absolutely are still room for growth for those guys, but there's people are curating where they're shopping, and they will not migrate to discounters in totality. Online shopping will again be about choice for the consumer, and that's what we're seeing. So how are the large stores reacting? Well, you've seen over the last couple of years where the retailers or the majors have fought back. Tesco now pretty much back in growth. Asda over the last few quarters are seeing a return to growth as well. They're coming after the missions that should by rights be in the convenience sector. So they're fighting back, and people are responding to these. So convenience for the shopper is absolutely about what is convenient for them. It's not about the convenience store. So where you're fighting is in, against all of the channels that I'm talking about within the grocery sector. And they're finding different ways to do this. And I'm not going to go through each of these individually, but every single supermarket are trying new things. They're bringing in different brands, and they're creating offers that make their stores attractive. And I'd certainly be encouraging you to look at how you do the same. 60% of shoppers are now shopping in discounters, and we've all had the analogy of the car parks are full of Mercedes and BMWs. Well, that's fairly true, because the whole demographic piece for discount stores, it's not about that anymore. It's about whether it's convenient and they're offering value. And again, the time perception comes back to, is it right for the shopper? Well, yes, they'll shop there. Online will continue to grow, and I think the subscription model will be one of the most interesting things around taking out those larger purchases, which makes it easier to have, the bleaches and the toilet rolls delivered rather than having to shop for those. So people don't want to spend time in stores, remember. 7 minutes, 22 minutes in supermarkets, they're trying to maximize their time. Innovation will continue, and some of the examples that we see here, I mean, one of the delivery systems or ecosystems that are now building up in London, where we've got Tesco and M&S, they're delivering within an hour a complete shop if you want to, and clearly you pay for that, but the fact is people are doing that. You've got some great examples of initiatives that are taking the industry forward, and they're satisfying the shopper. So responses to consider, I'm going to quickly whiz through these. You've got the opportunity in your stores to be more than just a shop, somewhere where people go to buy their groceries. You are part of the community. And we're seeing that time and time again, where people want to spend time locally, and if that means that they can spend more time in their convenience store, then you've got the right and permission to do that if you've got the facility. We look at stores right across the world, but there are no better examples than what's going on in the UK, and certainly in Ireland as well. create mission-based shopping. You can do this even without investment. Some thought process into how you how you merchandise products will absolutely deliver you benefits and maximize those 7 minutes that people are in store. And I put the Morrisons one in there because although they're not in the convenience channel per se, they've still got some great stores knocking around in Manchester. So again, fresh, everyone's talking about food to go and fresh. It really is the way to attract people in. It makes the store attractive, if nothing else. And you're going to hear some great examples later today from Kay Patel in East London, where he's trialing new things to bring people in. So it's not just me telling you or me observing from around the world. This stuff works, but you've got to give it a go, but you've got to do it right. That's the most important thing, because the shopper will not forgive you. A quick thing that you can do is curate your ranges. Again, Centra here, putting fruit with the chocolate, who'd have thought it? Personally, I don't think it's right, but that's just me, I'm a chocoholic. And then this point around ultra fresh, this is a great example from 7-Eleven in the USA, where you've got a vending solution for fresh. So it doesn't necessarily have to all be on you. The supply chain and the ecosystem needs to build up to this, maybe in the UK, but for sure, people will go for this, and it will add that point of difference. Now, I'm glad that the holding slide's here, because I've just nearly clicked in straight into this. Technology from around the world, everyone's focused on how technology can help us and speed up the transaction. And till-less technology has been out in the Far East and on test for quite some time. Everyone's talked about the Amazon beta test store over in Seattle. That is not where it's at anymore. I've got an example to show you in Dublin, and there's also an example of the vein technology that's being trialled in a cost cutter in West London. This adoption of technology is without doubt the thing that will drive consumers or shopper satisfaction and attract them to come into your stores. So there's a whole load of things you can be doing. There's some quick wins here, and clearly you've got something that takes a little bit more investment. You can exceed expectations way beyond what what customers want, and whether that be, as we see here, build your own burger or create your own pizza in a spa, or whether you go with a kids zone. And this example from Australia is great, but also I've seen this in an Apple Green in the UK. And another example from Apple Green in the UK is the beer cave. Not so difficult to do in terms of offering something that shoppers will come back to you for. Now, it doesn't have to be these things, but without a doubt, you can find reasons to bring people into your store and satisfy those shopper missions. And if there's one thing that I'll leave you with today, apart from the summary of these 7, is if you're going to do fresh, do it right. If you're going to do food to go, do it with people who care about food. And finally, be more than a shop. Give people something different. And I think that you can continue to win and take advantage of the growth that is available in the convenience channel.
A lot of examples coming from Ireland.
Yeah.
Why do they seem to be ahead of the game in a way that perhaps we're not here?
So I think the Irish example is, it is a slightly different marketplace to the UK. So there are fewer quick service restaurants. So the thing that I'm focused on with Ireland right now is that they're moving into an area of food for now, fresh food, and food that is, it's not just the normal food to go stuff. So they're not looking at just pre-packed sandwiches. They're getting foodies to make food in front of you, and you can absolutely make it for yourself. So it's highly personalized. And one of the things that loud and clear shoppers are asking for, not just in the food and grocery industry or from the food and grocery industry, but it's about personalization and the idea that you can go in and talk to somebody and make up a salad or a sandwich or a burrito right there and right now. So I think they've got a slightly different market. Also, they've got permission from their shoppers to get involved in this. And I think our innovative store of the year this year was from Ireland, which is probably one of the reasons why I've seen so much of that marketplace. And a guy that's taken a 1,900 square foot store, removed the ambient pretty much and stopped competing with the likes of Tesco and Sainsbury's local, well, not so much in that market, but certainly Tesco. And it has gone after food to go, and there's a curated range of ambient, but very little in the way of the standard categories. And I think that they've just decided to go after it in a completely different way. And there are many retailers in this room that will have, that plethora of convenience stores that they're competing against, and you can get into fresh with relatively little investment. But there's some great examples from Ireland.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, Guy Uzi, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.